A reading from the book of Judges. All the citizens of Shechem and all Beth Millo came together and proceeded to make Abimelech king by the terebinth at the memorial pillar in Shechem. When this was reported to him, Jotham went to the top of Mount Gerizim and, standing there, cried out to them in a loud voice, "Hear me, citizens of Shechem, that God may then hear you." Once the trees went to anoint a king over themselves. So they said to the olive tree, "Reign over us." But the olive tree answered them, "Must I give up my rich oil, whereby men and gods are honored, and go to wave over the trees?" Then the trees said to the fig tree, "Come, you reign over us." But the fig tree answered them, "Must I give up my sweetness and my good fruit, and go to wave over the trees?" Then the tree said to the vine, "Come, you, and reign over us." But the vine answered them, "Must I give up my wine that cheers gods and men, and go to wave over the trees?" Then all the trees said to the buckthorn, "Come, you reign over us." But the buckthorn replied to the trees, "If you wish to anoint me king over you in good faith, come and take refuge in my shadow. Otherwise, let fire come from the buckthorn and devour the cedars of Lebanon." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Responsorial Psalm. Lord, in your strength the king is glad.
Lord, in your strength the king is glad.
O Lord, in your strength the king is glad. In your victory how greatly he rejoices. You have granted him his heart's desire. You refused not the wish of his lips. Lord, in your strength the king is glad. For you welcomed him with goodly blessings. You placed on his head a crown of pure gold. He asked life of you. You gave him length of days forever and ever. Lord,
in your strength the king is glad.
Great is his glory in your victory. Majesty and splendor you conferred upon him. You made him a blessing forever. You gladdened him with the joy of your face.
Lord, in your strength the king is glad. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew. Jesus told his disciples this parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out at dawn to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with them for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. Going out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You too, go into my vineyard, and I will give you what is just." So they went off. He went out again around noon and around 3 o'clock and did likewise. Going out about 5 o'clock, he found others standing round and said to them, "Why do you stand here idle all day?" They answered, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You too go into my vineyard." When it was evening, the owner of the vineyard said to the foreman, "Summon the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and ending with the first." When those who had started about 5 o'clock came, each received the usual daily wage. So when the first came, they thought they would receive more. But each of them also got the usual wage. And on receiving it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last ones worked only 1 hour, and you've made them equal to us who bore the day's heat and the burden." He said to one of them in reply, "My friend, I'm not cheating you. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what is yours and go. What if I wish to give this last one the same as you? Or am I not free to do as I wish with my own money? Are you envious because I am generous?" Thus the last will be first, and the first will be last. The Gospel of the Lord. This parable of the buckthorn by Jotham in the book of Judges is a kind of a challenging parable. It really isn't in opposition to kings as such, but rather to the specific king Abimelech, who was a bloodthirsty person who was very willing to compromise and become a bedfellow, so to speak, with pagan gods. In fact, he took money from the temple of one of these pagan Baal gods to buy hitmen to wipe out the members of the family of his opposition. So that's the kind of person that they are now choosing to be king. And Jotham, who should have been wiped out in that slaughter, but somehow escaped, is the one who is condemning Abimelech at this point. And as he had a bad beginning, he will have a bad end. So the question here is not so much king or not, as what kind of person you're going to have for a king. You want to choose somebody with dignity and worth, like in the parable, the olive tree or the fig tree or the grapevine, or do you want this worthless bramble bush? That's the choice that's being made. And so it reflects what, for us, I guess, back in the 1920s, the newspaper reporter for the Baltimore Sun, H.L. Mencken, was quoted as saying, "Democracy is the theory that the common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard." And we do. You know, we have, look at, not to get into politics, but let's just say that we don't have the best collection of people standing for office right now. You know, just, they may be interesting, but I don't know. Those are our choices. Those are our choices. Do we want a king that is worthy for our being ruled? The answer is yes. The answer is Jesus Christ, which is why we sang the opening hymn that we did. There is where we want to focus on who is going to rule over us, who's going to wave over us, who's going to welcome us, who is going to give himself for us, rather than, as other kings sometimes did, taking whatever they could from others for themselves. Jesus as our king is the exact opposite. He is where we want to put our trust and our faith. Let us stand and pray.